Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into a seriously fascinating tactical clash from the 2026 FIFA World Cup. We're talking Sweden versus Tunisia, and wow, this game was an absolute masterclass in contrasting styles. We had sheer, unbridled energy going right up against icy, calculated discipline. So let's get right into it.
2-0, that is your final scoreline, folks. A decisive, clean sheet victory for the Swedes. And honestly, that sends a massive message to the rest of the tournament. There is literally no doubt about who controlled the narrative of this match from the first whistle to the last. But, the final score only tells us what happened. It doesn't tell us how it happened.
Which brings us to the big question we're unpacking today. How exactly did Sweden completely neutralize Tunisia's high-energy press? I mean, this match was the ultimate test, right? Structural dominance versus urgent, chaotic energy. Tunisia came out wanting to totally overwhelm them, but Sweden had an incredibly specific plan to shut that down. How did they pull it off without buckling under all that pressure?
Okay, let's dive into this Group K showdown.
So this was an absolutely crucial Group K matchup in the 2026 FIFA World Cup. In these short-format tournaments, getting maximum points from your very first match really sets the tone. A 2-0 win gave Sweden the absolute ideal outcome to kick off their campaign. The numbers are clear, Sweden got the result. But let's look at the actual tactical battle that made it a reality.
Moving on to the first half breakthrough. The opening stages of the first half were actually pretty balanced. Both teams stepped onto the pitch just kind of feeling each other out, but they were defined by a massive contrast in mentalities. Tunisia came out totally firing with early energy, throwing a high press to force mistakes. But here's the brilliant part. Instead of panicking, Sweden leaned into calm possession and methodical build-up. They absolutely refused to be rattled by that frantic start. They just absorbed the energy and slowly, surely took the reins of the game.
And that icy patience paid off massively midway through the half. Sweden shifted the momentum entirely in their favor by breaking the deadlock. And it wasn't some lucky bounce either. It was a well-executed, totally deliberate attacking sequence that ended in a completely clinical finish, 1-0 to Sweden. That single moment forced Tunisia to rethink their whole approach, and it gave Sweden the exact cushion they needed for the next phase of their game plan.
That brings us to a really vital tactical concept: tempo management. Basically, this is the ability to control the speed of the match, which naturally limits your opponent's attacking opportunities. And it is exactly what Sweden did right after taking the lead. They didn't rush, they literally took the air out of the ball. By managing the tempo that well, they just suffocated Tunisia's momentum and comfortably rode that 1-0 lead right into halftime. It was a psychological victory just as much as a physical one.
All right, let's look at the second half counterattack.
As the second half kicked off, the whole dynamic shifted. Trailing and desperate, Tunisia turned up the heat with a massive surge of urgency, pushing really aggressively forward for an equalizer. You can actually trace the emotional flow of the match here. Tunisia's early press, followed by Sweden calmly breaking the deadlock, directly causes Tunisia's urgent, desperate second half push. But Sweden was waiting for exactly this. They used Tunisia's own desperation against them to set up the final stage, the counterattack that seals it.
So how did they set that trap? Well, by exploiting the space. While Tunisia was throwing everything they had at the Swedish goal, committing more and more players forward, Sweden stayed incredibly compact offensively. They were perfectly organized, super difficult to break down, and just patiently waiting for gaps to open up in Tunisia's backline. Because, the more Tunisia pushed, the more space they left behind.
And then came the climax of the match. Sweden sprang their trap. A perfectly timed, sweeping counterattacking move caught Tunisia completely exposed, and Sweden grabbed their second goal. That number 2 effectively slammed the door shut on any Tunisian hopes. It was game, set, match right there.
So what is the winning formula here?
What made this structural dominance work so well? It boils down to a super distinct 3-step blueprint. Step 1, defend compactly. Do not give the opponent a single inch of space in the final third. Step 2, control the midfield tempo. When you win the ball back, dictate the pace so the opponent can't generate any sustained pressure. And finally, Step 3, exploit the counterattack. When the opponent overcommits, you punish them with ruthless efficiency. Sweden executed this 1-2-3 punch flawlessly.
You really have to applaud two standout units here. On one hand, Sweden's defensive unit remained an absolute rock, totally solid for the entire 90 minutes. And on the other hand, the midfield acted as the brain of the operation, controlling the tempo and managing those lethal transitions perfectly. These two units worked in total harmony to completely shut down the opposition. To pull it all together, if you want to know why Tunisia struggled so immensely to break Sweden down, just keep these core takeaways in mind. It was their structured possession early on. It was getting that tone-setting first-half goal to force Tunisia's hand. It was an unbreakable, compact defense under intense pressure. And it was finished off by a completely clinical counterattack. This is the literal definition of structural control winning out over frantic energy.
And hey, it's not just analysts noticing this. Take a listen to this TikTok caption going around. A controlled performance in Group K. Sweden secure a 2-0 win over Tunisia with disciplined defending and clinical finishing. Fans everywhere are recognizing that Sweden is starting this World Cup looking like a highly organized, seriously dangerous force.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty massive question to wrap up today's explainer. If chaotic energy and a relentless high press can't break Sweden's icy discipline, what team actually has the tactical key to unlock this defense? As the road to the final continues, every single upcoming opponent in Group K and beyond is going to be studying this tape, desperately trying to find a flaw in the Swedish armor. Until then, Sweden looks incredibly formidable. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep your eyes on the pitch for what happens next.